What's up, everybody? We are back for another primetime showdown slate Sunday Night Football right here on Rotogrinders. I'm Justin Carlucci alongside Keith Eister, and we still have some drama unfolding in the late 4 o'clock games here. Keith, you're in the middle of this. What's going on, buddy?
I am. Not a great day overall for me, but I do have one team that popped up there. It's a Stafford stack, but I still have Zeke left. So overtime in this Dallas game, it's currently in 15th in the $33 5 entry on DraftKings. So hoping for some overtime here so we can get a little more Zeke action.
Okay. Yeah. Big Sunday night game. Thanks for coming back and hanging out with us after the morning shift we had. Pittsburgh hosting Seattle without Russell Wilson, without Chris Carson. Before we get into that, I have to make some quick plugs, but what were some of your bigger surprises today on the main slate, Keith, before we dive into it?
Chalk just continues to smash, right? Most of the running backs, with the exception of Kareem Hunt, of course. But Henderson got there. Herbert got there for the most part. He missed the bonus by 3 yards, so he was very close to even better. And Cooper Kupp is just continuing to be absolutely like must play. Just receiving a phenomenal target share and some of the heaviest volume in the league. So fade him at your own risk going forward for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Some quick plugs here. BetMGM, get on over there to BetMGM and use the bonus code GRINDERSBET, all one word, and bet $10 to get $200 instantly on BetMGM if your team scores a touchdown. That's promo code GRINDERSBET. Of course, RG Premium, we are about to get nuts with NBA starting on top of everything else here, and a lot of customizable packages with Rotogrinders here. If you're not rolling with premium, you get lineup HQ. On top of that, you get great ownership projections, a ton of great articles, and some premium audio and video as well. So check out Rotogrinders Premium, like and subscribe, and of course, check out our daily fantasy football podcast feed. So we have a ton of audio coming out throughout the week, from a quick preview to the analytical stuff and the deep dives and everything up until Sunday. So always some fun stuff going on here at Rotogrinders. So we have Pittsburgh at home to kind of jump into it. You know, they have their flaws, as does Seattle, and Seattle is a little more dinged up than Pittsburgh is right now. I mean, I guess you could say a lot. No Russell Wilson, no Chris Carson. What's your macro kind of synopsis of the game tonight?
Real quick, Dallas just tied it up. So we are currently tied with 20 seconds left.
Jeez.
But yeah, this game here, Sunday night, I don't know. It's going to be tough for offense to happen in this one, in my opinion. And it's not that I have a ton of respect for either defense. But obviously with Geno Smith leading the Seahawks and Ben looking completely over the hill and washed up, I don't know where the offense comes from. I think both teams are going to try to run the ball quite a bit. Pittsburgh will focus on their short passing game, obviously, but yeah, I think points are going to be tough to come by.
Yeah, and Seattle has a low Vegas total, and rightfully so. I mean, it's just under 20, I believe. Yeah, 19 and a quarter, and then 23.75. As you can see right here on the lineup HQ screen. Sorry, I have like a million tabs open, and I'm just making sure we have this here. But yeah, I know it's kind of Captain Obvious, and it's probably going to be the very popular kind of build. I can't wrap my head around how Seattle's going to move the ball like whatsoever. I know they have some nice advantages on the outside, as per usual with Metcalf and Lockett. And I know Geno Smith looked good at the end of the game against the Rams. Good. He looked okay. Only a week of preparation with the first team offense, hostile environment in Pittsburgh. Like, there could be some communication breakdowns. I mean, Russell Wilson is a magician and he runs for his life every week with that pass protection. And now you have Geno, who was almost at West Virginia like a decade ago, right? We're kind of getting old. I feel like it was yesterday. He was throwing for 500 yards a game at West Virginia. I just don't know. I don't know how they're going to move the ball. Like, I feel like if you're going to go Metcalf or Lockett at captain, I feel like Seattle's going to struggle to move the ball. Like, they need to score twice. I feel like maybe like a 2-4 build, something like that, where both touchdown throws go to Metcalf or Lockett. I just can't figure out a Seattle build other than using one of those receivers. I've been considering quarterback captains the last 3 or 4 slates because things are starting to change. The ownerships at captain for most quarterbacks are becoming a little like almost contrarian. They're much lower than they were. Of course, you have the Lamar slate where he was like 50%, but when 2 quarterbacks are kind of, I don't know, like average quarterbacks, I would say that the ownerships have been in the teens, and that wasn't always the case last year. So it's just not a week. I don't think this is a game where I'm willing to do that on either side. What are your thoughts, Keith? I mean, have you noticed the kind of ownership kind of trending more towards the pass catchers at captain opposed to last year?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. People have started to figure out that usually it's whichever pass catcher tends to go nuts, or if a running back scores a couple of times, they tend to pass the quarterbacks because they're generally cheaper. And I mean, especially on DraftKings with the point per reception, they just have and the bonuses too, they just have a better chance to catch a quarterback who's not throwing for multiple touchdowns or getting the 300-yard bonus. So I think on this particular slate that it's going to be the same. Like, I don't think anybody wants to play either of these quarterbacks. I'm with you. I can't stomach it. And it's probably a pretty good play for large field stuff. If you think that, I don't know, if you think Geno looked good last week and he can come out and throw on this Pittsburgh defense, or you think Ben has a little bit left in the tank, I think I'd rather side with Ben just because his weapons are better. I'm with you. Seattle is just going to be tough with no Russ, no Carson, just really banged up offense. I'm with you that I'm having trouble seeing how they move the ball. And I don't believe that Geno Smith is taking a step this late into his career or anything. I think he kind of just caught some lightning in a bottle last week, and he's going to really struggle tonight. So if I had to pick one, it'd be Ben, but I don't really want to do either one.
You can look at our lineup HQ projections. You can see that I have the blitz up here, and I'm sure most of you tuning in use the blitz. Awesome stuff by Cardi, by the way. But if you look at, even just, I have the captain projections up here. You can see the base projections, and Najee is almost a full 7 points higher than the next highest projected player in this game. We have him at 21% projected captain ownership. Do you think that's going to be higher, Keith?
For Najee?
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll get spread around to some of the wide receivers too. So I think that's about correct. It's going to be in the range. I could see it getting closer to 30, but yeah, I think he's going to be in like that 25 to 30 range. Just because, I mean, Pittsburgh's heavily favored, and I think most people agree that Seattle's going to have a tough time here.
Okay. So build wise, are you finding more is 5-1 in play for you tonight? With we both agree that Seattle might. We both think that they will struggle to move the ball. Are you finding some super lopsided builds into your wheelhouse when you were making yours?
See, Pittsburgh isn't a team that's going to go out there and put up like 35 points either, though, is the problem. So I see this as a low scoring game overall. So I don't mind 3-3 builds even. Not that I think, just because I don't think Pittsburgh's going to like run them off the field. I think that it's going to be close just because it's going to be low scoring, and Pittsburgh is going to have problems as well. I don't know. Do you think it's got blowout potential, or do you think Seattle kind of sticks around just because it's low scoring?
If it's ugly enough, and it's not my favorite, I think 4-2, I've come on 2 more. as I built more after these 4 o'clock games. But not only if it's a blow, but if it's ugly enough, like I feel like there could be outcomes where you have, 4 Steelers skill guys and the kicker or something, or the defense. I mean, obviously with Geno in play, we don't know what we're getting out of him. I think we both agree he's going to struggle. I think Pittsburgh's defense is very much so in the cards tonight. I'm not usually a big defense guy in showdowns, and they're priced up too. So they took Geno well into consideration that he's playing. But I don't know if it needs to be like a super blowout, but even if it's just ugly enough on Seattle's end where there's not a lot of raw points in general, I think it's possible. So we got through some quarterbacks and we talked Najee Harris. Are any of those guys your favorite way to start a build for GPPs tonight?
Najee Harris is the one. I just think he has his role is so big. Like Pittsburgh wants to run the ball, protect what they know Ben is washed and doesn't have it anymore. It seems like at least through 5 weeks here. So Najee has a huge role. He's live for 20 rushing attempts, and he's seeing a ton of pass game volume as well. I don't know if you have his target share pulled up right there, but it is hefty. I'll tell you that. So yeah, Najee is my favorite captain play. Probably will be the most popular play. But I'm riding with Najee and going to try to figure out how to get different elsewhere.
Since we're talking about running backs, Alex Collins, the rest of the crew, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, he's very much in play for me too, because if Seattle does keep this game close, I think it's on the ground. We've talked about Geno Smith and his struggles previously up to this point. I could see where Collins, if this game is close, like within 1 or 2 scores, they're still just going to keep feeding Collins. And at his price tag, 6.8K on DraftKings, he lets you pretty much do whatever else you want with your lineup. So I have a lot of interest in Collins in the captain. I think he has a lot of touchdown equity, and he's absolutely in play for my Seattle heavy builds. That's where I want to go.
Yeah, so Harris is 3rd on the Steelers in target market share. He had that one game with 1 billion targets, right, against Green Bay. Was it Green Bay or was it before the Green Bay game? I have it right in front of me. I'm an idiot.
It was Cincinnati.
19 targets.
Yeah.
You would think that's a typo in that box score, but it's not. So obviously that inflates that number just a bit, but
For sure.
we could segue into receivers then, but obviously Juju is not in play tonight. He is done for the year, which is a decent blow to Pittsburgh. Looking at the rest of the Seattle players, last week DJ Dallas out-snapped Travis Homer 14-8. Just some objective information there. I think if it does get uglier, I think you can see DJ Dallas play 18-20 snaps in this one, maybe something like that. He's what, 3 digits under a K?
Yeah.
Very cheap. So if you're playing the this could very well be Steelers playing prevent late in the game and Geno Smith just hitting DJ Dallas on 5-yard like hook routes out of the backfield, right? And just plotting downfield at that price. He could crush late in the game. He could have that snowflake with like no points until like the 4th quarter. And then maybe it starts going a little bit. So I think DJ Dallas is interesting to monitor here. I think that's weird. I mean, Pete Carroll is a weirdo. We know that. Like Travis Homer had a role before Chris Carson's injury, and then it's almost like for absolutely no reason, DJ Dallas took Homer's role from him when Carson got hurt. That was a little confusing to me. Do you have any way to sort that out, or what are your thoughts on any of those really cheap running backs?
Yeah, it was infuriating. On their last showdown, I played a ton of Homer, just hoping that he would get that late game passing role, and that he really didn't even see the field. So yeah, I think it looks like Dallas. I mean, Dallas got the run in their previous game. I don't know why they would go back to Homer now that they've made the switch to Dallas, but who's to say? They're cheap enough and low owned enough. I think you can take stabs on both of them. But as far as who is going to get the actual role, I don't know. Lean to Dallas, but not sure.
Okay, that's fair. Let's get into the fun stuff. Wide receiver, Keith. Obviously, Juju not playing. James Washington did not play last week, and Ray Ray McLeod got some burn. I did some digging, like just from historically, I feel like McLeod probably sees a limited snap count on offense and probably goes back to special teams. He's a super valuable member of that special teams group in Pittsburgh. So I think Washington, my guess is he really won't be on a leash. But what also leads me to that is they signed Anthony Miller, right? Good old Anthony Miller came to Pittsburgh. So I feel like McLeod's value to them is on special teams, and he was forced to play last week. Do you have a read on that situation whatsoever?
I agree with you. We've seen him pop in there for injury replacements and such before, but then he doesn't continue that role going forward. Washington had a role before he was injured. I foresee him stepping right back into that role, which definitely eats into McLeod. I think it's going to be Washington out there and 3 wide receiver sets.
It's tough because both of those guys can flip a slate on his head. They're both super fast, right? I mean,
Yep.
Broken tackle, and we'll see you later. There was that narrative that James Washington wanted to trade before the season, but now he has a golden opportunity to reinsert himself either for trade value or Pittsburgh needs him. I mean, so Juju's on a contract year too, right? So there's some serious opportunity for Washington. Roethlisberger has not shied away from him in the past. So I think he'll see a respectable amount of volume, and I like Washington tonight. Sort through these, higher end wide receivers on both sides that we frequently play in the DFS world.
Yeah, I mean, it's Metcalf over Lockett for me. Just judging that on what we saw last week, basically seemed like Geno had eyes more for Metcalf than for Lockett. I think Lockett and Russ just have tight chemistry, and they've played together for so long that they both elevate each other. And this is kind of narrative-y, but I just feel like Geno and Lockett aren't going to be as in unistep as Russ and Lockett are. I think Metcalf is definitely the more talented, bigger guy. So I think he'll have an easier time against the Steelers defense. So I like Metcalf over Lockett. Steelers side, I'm really interested in both of them, despite not loving Ben. If the Steelers are going to be the ones that put up the points and lead this game, I think both of the wide receivers are going to see some volume here. And I like your call on Washington too. He's absolutely in play. So,
and he's priced as he should be having a role. So he's not a free square. He's not 2K. He's not going to be 50% tonight or anything like that. We even projected at 15 on DK, which is awesome because I really like him. I mean, I think he's worth. I think the risk outweighs. I mean, the reward outweighs the risk with James Washington tonight. So I'm happy to see that. That is my thought there. But between Deontay and Claypool, we've seen in the past, Ben peppers Deontay with the targets. Claypool gets a lot more of the touchdown equity. Yep. But Seattle is so bad on the back end. And God forbid Najee gets going a little bit because Seattle's just the whole defensive unit is terrible. Like, this is a unit where Pittsburgh can run the ball. That offensive line might be one of the worst in football in terms of run blocking. But if that play action game gets going at all, then I think any of these receivers could really start eating tonight.
I think you made a really good point there. And that's the reason I think both of them can get there is because Deontay can get there by receptions all the way down the field. And then if Claypool is the one that finds the box, like they're both going to be in that range of points. I mean, on this, what we expect to be a low scoring slate, you might need both of them, even if there's only one touchdown between the two of them.
Although, as you see on the screen, Deontay has scored in 3 of the 4 games he's played this year. So what the hell do I know, right? But that's what it was last year. But, I don't know.
It makes sense from like a prospect profile or how their profile as receivers. Like Deontay Johnson's more the like middle underneath guy, and Claypool's the big deep threat physical wide receiver. So, I mean, it totally makes sense with what we've seen historically outside of the last couple of weeks here.
Cool. I agree. And it just depends what kind of game this really is, because in some builds, obviously, that I make, if I'm playing Najee Harris at captain, I probably won't have Ben in some of those builds, just because I'm thinking if Najee scores twice or maybe 3 times and has more touchdown equity and Ben doesn't pay off. But this is a really unique game, because if it is ugly on Seattle's end, there might not be a ton of raw points there. Maybe only one of their skill guys gets there, right? It's possible. But then you look at FanDuel. I know we have some FanDuel players, and it's harder to fade Ben if you think Seattle's going to really struggle, because Ben could throw a touchdown if it's super ugly and maybe still get there if he throws for 300 yards, right? For raw points. It's possible, even though he's super expensive. and maybe I'm beating my words in like 45 minutes, but it could be that bad for Seattle tonight, right? Although they have like elite talent on the outside.
Yeah, I just can't do it with Ben. I don't know.
No, I totally get it. It's just, different sites, FanDuel's raw points, and like I'm more inclined to, for larger field tournaments, I typically, in a situation like this, would make a good amount of Najee cap MVP lines without Ben, just a touchdown equity. But how ugly is it going to be on Seattle's end? I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing. Will Ben pay off his salary on DK? I don't know. Two teams that are struggling to find their identity, and things have really changed. So tight end is interesting too. I have Gerald Everett up here. He had COVID a couple weeks ago. He was back in action. He typically has more of the timeshare than Will Dissly does, but Will Dissly at the $1,600 mark is known to break some slates as well every now and then. And I don't know, bad quarterbacks either lock in on the big receiver or the tight ends as their security blanket sometimes. So, like, if I don't have enough of anything in my builds, it's the tight end position, I think, tonight. What are your thoughts here, tight end?
Yeah, I struggled to get there too, just because we have a little bit of a timeshare on each side. With Everett back, that's definitely going to cut into anything Dissly was seeing, and it wasn't much to begin with, even when Everett was out. Kind of vice versa. Like Everett didn't have a huge role when he was healthy, so I think you have to sprinkle him in a little bit, just because it's a single game and variance and anything can happen. But I'm not in love with any of the four really. On the Pittsburgh side, it's pretty much an even split between Freiermuth and Ebron, right? And neither one of them has really put up any sort of a meaningful performance yet this season. So
yeah, I'm looking at the air yard market share. Freiermuth has 7%, Ebron has 6%, and just to look at Claypool and Deontay have really dominated. Claypool actually has 30% of the air yard market share this year. Deontay has 32, and Juju was all the way down at 14. But we know Ben likes to plot around the line of scrimmage with that wide receiver screen game and a lot of run after catch type stuff. I get it. But just to show how dominant Claypool and Deontay have been in terms of demanding those targets in this offense, it's possible that they could both see 10 targets tonight if the game's fairly competitive for a couple of quarters. So it's going to be a real doozy tonight.
Let me throw something at you. Do you think it's viable to play Deontay and Claypool without Ben?
In the right type of game, it's not my favorite, but I could see it, and that's the kind of stuff that takes down a milli every so often, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what, like, if so much of his volume goes to those two guys.
Yeah.
If Najee runs one in, Claypool catches a touchdown, and Deontay has 10 receptions, I mean, they don't do a whole lot else. There's a world where you could have 3 Steelers in your lineup and one of them isn't Ben.
That's like exactly what you need to happen. But this is a fantasy game of getting exactly what you need to happen. So totally get it. Freddie Swain has been more relevant since like the second half of last year, and kind of every now and then makes a play or two. You have any interest in Freddie Swain as a cheaper option?
I do, yeah. Price tag is really nice, especially on DraftKings. He's very useful. Seen the targets tick up. I mean, he's had a role pretty much all season, so seems like he's getting more involved. Yeah, I'm more than happy to take shots on him. He's probably my favorite value option. Penny Hart, we saw get a little bit of run last week as well. So, and he is cheaper than Swain, but I think Swain is the guy they prefer there. So I'll pay up a little bit more for Swain in the majority of my builds, but perfectly fine to sprinkle some Hart.
I don't have the chat open just yet. Did you know Dallas won? Do we need to clear the air?
I did know Dallas won and absolutely crushed me. And CeeDee Lamb, Zeke did not get a touch, and yeah, it hurt. I dropped quite a bit in that tournament, but man, it happens.
Hey, that's why we have this show. Hey, good run. You've had some serious runs lately. Maybe we can get some showdown action tonight. Talk to me about defense here. Like, we have the Steelers projected at 22%. Seattle garnishing a bit of ownership too. You know what? Pittsburgh has shown it can struggle. I guess there's a world where I would play some Seattle in the right types of builds. It'll be contrarian. But I do have legitimate interest, and I do have a decent amount of the Pittsburgh's defense in my builds. With the increase in price, they factored in Geno Smith will be taking the helm. I was hoping that ownership number would be like in the teens and not pushing 23. So how do you gauge Pittsburgh's defense tonight in your builds?
So I had interest until you factor in price and ownership. I think a defense that's projected to be over 20% owned and is priced up, I think that's a good fade. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's definitely a scary proposition. Geno Smith is probably even money to throw a pick six, but I'm going to be underweight on that. I don't want to play a 25% on defense.
Fair enough. Totally get it. All right, let's make a build or two here, and then we'll get some questions from the chat. Let me pop the lineup preview open here. There's plenty of ways you can go tonight, obviously. I guess we're both indifferent or not on Ben as a captain play. Is it Najee for you? Is it okay to run Najee in large field GPPs? Like, where are you going to get different if you run Najee, or are you more accustomed to having some receivers at the captain spot?
So I like playing Najee in the captain, and then either leaving a bunch of money on the table or fading Ben, honestly, is one of my favorite things to do, but still playing a pass catcher or two, even with Najee in there. Just because
Ben's 40+% own. I mean, is that different enough for you fading Ben? I think you can get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be more popular to fade Ben in a Najee build. Mm-hmm. But I think the piece that further differentiates it is playing the pass catcher with Najee. I don't think many people are going to do that.
Okay, so you throw Najee in here at captain. So which one of these kind of dominant pass catchers in this Pittsburgh offense are you more inclined to play? Is it a price thing for you, or are you more willing to pay up and try to punt at the bottom to kind of make Deontay Johnson work with Najee?
I think I like to pay up for Deontay, because if Najee's in the captain, we need him to score touchdowns. And I think Deontay has a path to a higher reception volume than Claypool. So I'm leaning Deontay over Claypool, but love them both. Wouldn't argue either way.
Okay. Let's throw Deontay in here, and you can see I have a widget in the way on my screen. You have like 5,600 per position left, and you can do some damage on this slate with 56 per position left. And I guess what for larger field GPPs, what kind of build to get some leverage are you finding yourself landing on more? Like 3-3, 4-2 is hard to not play. It's hard to like not play a lot of Steelers tonight, right? But that's what everyone's going to be doing most likely.
Yeah, so I like the 3-3 because I like a lot of the value plays on Seattle. I just think at those prices that there's a route. Even if they only score 2 touchdowns, they might not even get that. But if they score 2 touchdowns and you find both of those touchdowns, that you can be okay with some of those value Seattle guys, even if they get beat by a couple of scores.
Okay. So you know what? I was praising James Washington, and I like the ownership, and I like the upside, and I think there's some unknown with him for sure. Does he fit in a build like this, or would you go elsewhere?
Yeah, I think if you want to play a quarterback, it's going to be I already had Metcalf in there. Sorry. It depends.
Well, I do like Metcalf in this build regardless. So let's run it with Metcalf because I'm with you.
See where we're at then after.
And I don't think it's narrative-y at all, as you called it, that there's just natural chemistry with Lockett and Wilson, because that's the thing, man. So I'm with you. Narrative-y is like knowing ahead of time that Mark Andrews' grandma passed away and he went off, or like Yusuf Nurkic when he did the same thing when his grandma passed or something, because I played Yusuf Nurkic on a showdown slate that day. I remember that. Or, Chris Godwin is from Philly, and that was narratively last week didn't work, obviously, in that Bucs Eagles game. But I don't think that's narrative-y at all. That's a real football thing. So I'm with you. If you throw Najee in a captain, run Metcalf and Deontay Johnson, got off my screen here. So we'll throw those three in here. And I think that's a good base. And I can't argue with any of that at all. I think Metcalf is my favorite raw points guy and probably even per dollar guy. I know he's expensive, but like I think he's going to see the work the easiest out of anybody in Seattle. So talk to me from here, Keith. Where's your next step?
All right. You have Washington in there too?
I don't, but I can go that direction. I know you were on the fence about him.
No, I'm not on the fence. I just wanted to make sure the salary was going to work because I was already planning on getting Metcalf in there. So, but yeah, it looks like it leaves us about 3,600 for the other two spots remaining. I'm with you. I think he has a role. He's going to see the field quite a bit. So we're playing for Washington to catch the bomb and Claypool to stay out of the end zone basically by doing that. Saves us some salary. I think 3,600 is plenty to work with some of the value plays we talked about.
Right. And this is obviously a Roethlisberger not getting their game, game script Najee with maybe 2 scores kind of thing. Like you said, plotting the ball down the field with Deontay Johnson and maybe Ben throws that bomb. Or you know what, like Washington might not even have to score to be optimal if in the right type of game at that price. Like he could catch the 60-yard pass, and maybe have like 90 yards in the game with 3 catches. I think he might be fine, depending on how the rest of the game folds out. But yeah, there is a ton of value. I guess like let's just reiterate, what is some of your favorite value? Looking at some of these Seattle guys we were talking about.
Yeah, I think Collins is very fairly priced, and I'm playing quite a bit of him. I think he's too expensive for this build, so we'd have to pick Collins over Washington, I think, if we wanted to get Collins in this one. Mm-hmm. But I was encouraged by what we saw out of DJ Dallas last week. I think that he's going to get worked in to even in the first half when it's a close game. I think they want to see what they have in this guy. Don't get me wrong. I think Collins leads the backfield, but I think DJ Dallas has a role. And at that price tag, you really do not need much to make that happen. So DJ Dallas is my favorite of anybody.
Yeah, and that leaves you just short of Collins, but you could pretty much leave a decent amount of money on the table. And, if you want to play Pittsburgh's D, that's fine. But Gerald Everett will leave, 2,100 on the table. You want to play a kicker. Like, I think if you're fading Ben, I think you can also play Boswell. If you think the ball's going to be moved, but maybe they just stall out on a couple of drives. Like anytime a kicker should have opportunity, one stupid penalty here or there sets them back 10 yards and they're kicking. Like, I don't mind playing Boswell in this game either. And you obviously would leave a good amount of money on the table in a build like this. And we talked about Freddie Swain. Who are we to say Ebron's not going to play, 18 snaps and catch the touchdown? It hasn't happened this year. That's literally what he did almost every game last year. Will Dissly, super cheap. If you're playing a build like this we have on the screen, I don't think a lot of people are going to go Will Dissly and even leave that much money on the table. So super interesting. I mean, if you play a Seattle value piece, that would give you a 3-3, which I think is okay if you're willing to leave, $2,000 on the table and most of these value plays we talked about in this build.
Yep. I mean, this fits the narrative that we talked about of a super ugly game. On most single game slates, we talk about like we're never fading both quarterbacks. Like sometimes we don't even want to fade one quarterback. In this lineup, no quarterbacks. I don't think anybody's going to do that. But I see the production being low enough that it might work out on this slate.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I'm sure we have some really good questions in the chat. So let's start going over there. Let me flip screens over here so I can check out the chat and let me see. Yeah, we're locking at 8:20. Perfect. So we got about 8:04, guys. Make sure you're starting to get to the finalization process of your builds while I bring up the YouTube chat here. All right. Okay. Favorite contrarian. I'm sorry. Let me backtrack. Favorite captain for cash games, Keith. Let's go there.
I mean, Najee has such a secure role from what we've seen through 5 weeks. 4-point favorites at home. For me, it's Najee. I mean, if you're a quarterback for cash type of person, I wouldn't argue with you if you wanted to do Ben. But I think the savings on Najee helps you out a little bit, or he's actually more expensive than Ben. I think that he's safe in either game script and he has a massive role. So it's Najee for me.
I'm with you. And if you're a projections guy, he's almost 7 more projected raw points ahead of anybody else on the slate too. So I'm with you on Najee, and we're guessing that, Washington will have more opportunity. I mean, those other receivers they're going to play more because they have to, but maybe they just lean on Najee a little bit more. It's possible than giving, Washington or one of the tight ends a little more work. Although we've said we like Washington, which we do, but it's possible they lean on Najee even a little bit more. They have real faith in him in the pass game, like right off the rip this year. I was a little surprised by that. Not that I didn't think he could catch a football, but his involvement from week 1 in the pass game has been incredible. And you know what? If Seattle gets a little aggressive early on the road and send some blitzes, I mean, we could see a couple more screens to Najee. So I think that's the way to go for cash as well. Let's flip tables here for FanDuel MVP. What is your favorite contrarian MVP? What are your thoughts there? Would it be a pass catcher and hoping one of them scores twice?
Yeah, I kind of like that. So we agree that Najee will be the most popular. Where do we think are the quarterbacks next? Do you think?
Yeah. I'd like to try to bring it up real quick while we're talking. Yeah, I would assume by default, Ben will be there. I will bring it up as we're talking on Lineup HQ.
So on FanDuel, I would flip my exposure to my wide receivers. I think Claypool is a better FanDuel play than Johnson, just because you only get the half point per PPR. I think Claypool would be my answer to that.
Like, there's a point that there's an outcome where like 22-ish, 20 raw points could be optimal tonight on FanDuel, right? Yeah. Top score. Yeah. It's possible. Mm-hmm. It's scary, but it is possible. All right, I will check out those ownerships as I have like a million windows open here. Tab browsing, baby. Okay, I agree with you. I like the odds. They're good enough that maybe one of these pass catchers scores twice. Okay, favorite players to fade for FanDuel GPP. So we're talking FanDuel again. Would it be the quarterbacks again? I know we just did that on DK and one of our mock builds here, but is this a game where you could fade a quarterback and feel good about it? And we just pretty much did that.
Yeah, it's tougher on FanDuel because it's half point PPR. There's no yardage bonuses, but still viable, I think, in this game. I think I would want more Ben on FanDuel than I am talking about playing on DraftKings, but I think, Geno Smith, I think, would be a good fade.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I saw punt ? And we both like DJ Dallas. Little tougher on FanDuel with not the full point per catch, but FanDuel's pricing is a little bit softer. Punts on DK other than DJ Dallas, Keith. What are you thinking?
We talked about Freddie Swain. I don't know if that's considered a punt. He is a little bit 2K, 2.4. So a Penny Hart would be the true full punt that I'd be interested in taking some stabs at. And then Travis Homer, I don't know. We've seen him have a role in this offense in the past. Carson is out. Maybe he gets like a hot hand approach and they ride him a little bit. So I prefer Dallas and even Hart, I think, to Homer, but I wouldn't mind taking some stabs on Homer and large field stuff.
Okay, so FanDuel projected ownership, we have Roethlisberger at 31% in the flex and Geno at 24%. Yeah, Najee 51%, Alex Collins 36% on FanDuel. And then, of course, your receivers are carrying a lot of ownership. Cat MVP wise, we have projected Najee for 28% MVP and Ben at 17% and Geno just below 10%. So even though I would typically be licking my chops, I just can't do it. I can't do it with Geno at MVP. I just can't do it. Even at that, I mean, that's tempting. A sub 10% MVP Geno. I mean, hey, you want to shotgun a couple beers and throw in a Millie dart, like relive some West Virginia days? I wouldn't be the craziest thing, but I'm still out on Geno at MVP. Your thoughts?
I don't know. I think you have to have some interest at that.
I guess game theory, you should, but man,
yeah,
I can't. And they project fairly similarly on FanDuel. Base projection wise, we have Ben at 16.76 and Gino at 15.38. I mean, it's close.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly viable. I'm with you. It doesn't feel good to click that button though.
Now I feel like I'm almost like slandering Gino here with like just a negative narrative that he's been a backup forever in West Virginia. There's no defense where he played in college, but I just can't do it. I can't do it. All right, we'll move on.
We've seen him with spot starts before, and it's just been brutal. And I mean, he's not a young guy anymore. It's not like he's developing.
That's true. You're right. He's not developing. Okay. All right. So Dean's burner account, love the name, by the way, says he's going to have 70% Deontay at captain. This is a classic 12 for 150 and 2 spot. Hey, I mean, we like Deontay. We like Claypool. Is Anthony Miller going to play tonight? Have you heard any rumblings, Keith? And is there any interest?
I have not seen anything on Anthony Miller. Just got in the door this week. I don't think he has a role this week.
Here's a good 1v1 for DKGPP. Pat F or Swain? Man, it's tough.
It's Swain for me. I mean, Pat F probably has more touchdown equity. But I like Seattle to be trailing.
Right.
I think that's going to force them to the air way more than they want to. And I see Swain as a kind of a short route type of guy that could see a couple, I don't know, at 2.4, he can pay that off with a handful of catches, even if they're only like of the 10-yard variety. Like 5 catches and 50 yards gets you there.
Agreed. I think the key point you made was the likely trailing game script, having Swain. Which maybe negatively correlates with a guy like Alex Collins. If you want them to have that volume, they need to be fairly competitive. So it'll be pretty telling tonight. Like if Pittsburgh is able to handle Seattle, like maybe I don't know. It's going to be very telling tonight, regardless. But I'm with you. I think I go Swain there too. Okay, can I play Harris at captain on FanDuel with Smith, Lockett, Metcalf, and Dallas? I wouldn't, but God, I wouldn't. That's like a 1-5. I just can't. I couldn't do it. I mean, you could, but I wouldn't. If that makes any sense.
So for Lockett and Metcalf to outscore both Deontay and Claypool is the part that I struggle with.
Yeah.
Like one of them could definitely outscore both of them, but for both of them to outscore both, it's a struggle. I guess Lockett is the cheapest of the bunch. So maybe like from a value point per dollar standpoint, it works out for you, but yeah, I don't think Seattle throws it enough to where both Metcalf and Lockett can outscore.
I think I agree. I totally agree. I'm with you. I can't remember what showdown slate it was last year, but it was a FanDuel Marquise Brown MVP and a 1-5 won it. I can't remember what stupid game it was, but that was like one of the few that I recall on the winning team. I think it was too. So I'm with you. I think it's just too much high-end Seattle guys that are going to have to get there. Who are the highest leverage captains based on slate IQ, Jordan said. I actually don't have Alan's article open right now. Great job, by the way, Alan, if you're tuned in.
Yeah, a little bit of a new format, right?
Yeah, and the leverage builds Jordan's asking about. Did you have that open by any chance?
I do have it here. Cool. So we're looking for captain leverage. Looks like Deontay Johnson is going to be a little bit overowned, even though Najee Harris is the highest owned projected captain at 21.5%. He's leveraged 26% would be the optimal usage if you're looking at past top 1% lineups. So that's surprising to see a little bit. Najee Harris is still has leverage despite his high ownership.
Yeah, that is a little surprising.
The least leverage would be Pittsburgh defense.
Okay, and we kind of talked about that, although
they're just too
there is a chance for disaster with Gino, but I totally get it at that ownership. Projected at what, 22.5%, something like that. So
yeah, about 4% in the captain. Optimal is closer to 2.5%. So
Gotcha. Yeah, I haven't heard a peep about Slate IQ. You can check out that premium article that Alan has been up for a couple hours. Definitely a great read. So definitely make sure you go check out that premium article, Jordan. Which two of the three between DK, Claypool, and Deontay for DK cash, Keith? Tough one.
Yeah, Deontay is the first one I want, just because I feel comfortable he's going to receive the reception volume, the target share. I think it depends a little bit on who else you have in there. Like if you have a bunch of Seattle and not as much Pittsburgh, I'd be okay with Claypool, but I would try to get DK, I think.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts there too. Definitely Deontay, and I can't fault you for going either way with the other two, but it's DK by a nose for me. We just know that volume is going to be there for Deontay, for sure. Okay. Yeah, so I guess that's all the questions. If you guys have anything else last minute, fire them our way. We got about 8:16, so make sure you hit that save or submit button or whatever you're doing, because every now and then we are all victim of forgetting to save or submit while we're tinkering and reading up last minute. Okay, all right, Collins or Washington? Now that's a tough one. I think that might depend on potentially game script. So Collins or Washington, Keith, what's your initial thoughts there?
Yeah. I think you talked me into a little bit more Washington than I actually have in my build. So I think, I mean, I built it with more Collins. I think he can still have a passing role. We saw it a little bit last week. It's not like he doesn't see any targets, but I definitely am concerned that they'll plug in Dallas or Homer to completely take that role in the trailing script, even though that's not quite what we saw last week. But Washington returning, Pittsburgh being ahead, we think, like Washington had a pretty deep, like a better role than I realized pre-injury. So I think he steps right back into that role, especially with no Juju now. I'd lean Washington.
I would say I'd play Collins in cash, probably, right? Maybe a higher floor, probably more potential touchdown equity. Is that fair?
Yes, I do agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, I think Washington at that ownership might be more of a tournament play, but I do like it tonight. Yeah, I mean Collins will get the volume, unless it's completely out of hand through the first quarter, right? I mean, they need to protect Geno and the ball, so I think there's going to be volume there for Collins. So I think he's more of a higher floor play, but I love the upside of Washington tonight at that price too. Anything else, Keith? 8:18 Eastern, guys. Make sure you're saving those lineups once again. Anything else on your mind about this slate that we didn't have a chance to cover?
No, I think we covered it. We didn't talk about Seattle defense at all. I don't mind them as a play. Like they're cheap. Ben is prone to throw a couple interceptions. Maybe they get a pick six. I would definitely use Collins in that lineup. If we start off with a pick six and then Seattle just sits on the ball all game. I mean, I could legitimately see Collins getting 20 rushing attempts in this game if they're playing from a lead. So
what are your thoughts at Collins at MVP? I think FanDuel for raw points, and talk to me about DK as well. Do you have any interest on either site?
I do, just because I think he has so much touchdown equity. He's gonna get the goal line carries, I would think. I don't think they want to give it to Dallas or Homer. They're both kind of smaller, scat back almost types. Right. So I think Collins is a true lead back in this scenario.
Agreed. 8:19 guys, lock him in. And I think as we saw with Herbert, all it takes is one PI call down to in the 5-yard line to knock one in. So the beauty and the beast of daily fantasy football is how the ball gets down to the goal line. Awesome stuff. Yeah. Awesome stuff.
Same thing happened for Zeke. He couldn't quite punch it in. That was only about a $5,000 swing for me today.
Oh, man, that's a gut punch. I'm with you as well. That Dallas win, I have a 12-leg parlay in, which is ridiculous, I know, but I have 10 of 12 right now. I have Pittsburgh money line, and I have Tennessee money line tomorrow. So I might have to do some hedging tonight. And of course, I am a Tennessee fan, but it's tough to bet against the Bills right now.
Yeah. What's the spread in that game?
5.5 last time I looked.
Okay.
So, and there are a lot
Tennessee, right?
Yeah, it's in Tennessee, and I don't know if Steve's on the line or not, but I have a couple friends that are in Nashville, and I know Broadway is swamped with Bills fans. Steve, I don't know if you can confirm or not, but it looks like it's going to be very Buffalo oriented. Yeah, definitely is, said Steve. Yeah, definitely. You're gonna want to check out Monday Showdown stuff, guys. You know, we always have some great premium content, and thanks for sticking with us as well. So, Keith or Steve, anything before we get out of here? I'm sure, Steve, I think you were happier to have Dallas win that game by 6 than probably Keith was happier to have overtime on that one, probably.
That's all right. You know, we'll get them next week or tonight on the Showdown.
Yeah, let's take some stuff down, guys. Let us know. We hope this helped. Give us a like and subscribe and give us some feedback. So for Keith and Steve, I'm Justin. Good luck and enjoy the rest of your night.